This is Drew with Mental Grenade, and I have four Marines with me here, two vets, two active duty, and we just want to talk about how much we love the Marine Corps and/or hate the Marine Corps. It's a love-hate relationship. Why'd you join? What'd you do? Maybe a good story. Chad's in the upper left for my recording, so why don't we start off with Chad? How you doing tonight, brother?
Good, good. Sure. Why did I join? Well, it's not some elaborate answer that, I wanted to be patriotic and serve my country, because honestly, that's not the truthful answer. The truthful answer was I had a really bad childhood and the military was my only way out. Um, I didn't have the mental acuity at the time to go to college, too overwhelmed by my life experiences at that point that I kind of needed something to rewrite me and help me to kind of establish some normacy, I guess you can say, that I hadn't experienced up until that point. So decided to go in the military. The job I did, in the Marine Corps, I was a 0341, which is a mortarman. No specific reason why I picked that job. I got lucky. My recruiter was, I was the last guy he ever recruited in as active duty Marine. He's actually a Columbus police officer now. And so he said, I will give you, because I was an easy guy because I wanted infantry. But he said, I'll make sure I put in your contract any job you want for infantry. So, I was doing a little bit of research and I was like, well, mortarman sounds cool. I get to drop something that blows up and so that sounds fun. So I was like, I'll be a mortarman. He's like, okay. So that's how I became a mortarman. So it's not I don't have some fancy story as to why I joined the Marine Corps. And I don't have a fancy story why I was a mortarman. It's just, you know what? Hey, it sounds like a cool job. Funny story. When I was in Iraq, I think I've told you this one, Drew. When I was in Iraq, my CO, because I was in the TAC CP, assisting in approving fire missions for the battalion. My CO was stealing all of the good MREs out of the MRE boxes. The spaghetti and meat sauce, like all the good stuff he was taking out before anyone else got the MRE boxes. So, we were all getting screwed. And I knew when the new boxes were coming in. And like the plastic straps that go around them, if you shimmy them just right, you can get them off without breaking them. And so I actually shimmied them off and opened the boxes and told everyone that was working for the TAC CP to give me all your garbage MREs. And so I took them on. I became like Robin Hood, man. Steal from the rich, give to the poor, And so I took all their crappy MREs and I replaced them. I took all the good ones out and gave them to everyone, and then put all the garbage ones inside the boxes, and then slipped the plastic straps back on. CO was never the wiser, and he opened up those MRE boxes and was not happy, and no one ever spoke about what happened.
Okay, so that leads us to first round robin question. What's your favorite MRE? What's your least favorite MRE?
Favorite MRE would have to be the spaghetti and meat sauce. Least favorite was the jambalaya.
Seth.
I'd probably have to second the favorite for the spaghetti and meat sauce. My least favorite was the old was it Five Fingers of Death?
Yeah.
I got 3 of those in one day in
Ooh.
MCT. They're handing them out the first thing in the morning, and they came by, dumped 3 in my rack. I looked down, all 3 of them. Someone could have died right then. They would have.
Chase?
I mean, so damn many of them. Whichever one's on the top of the box, I don't even look at them anymore. I just grab when I need it. The least favorite is that nasty omelet that luckily didn't last long.
Chris?
Yeah, I kind of probably have to say, something similar to Chase. I'm fine with typically any of the MRE. They're not, my favorite. I would say I typically enjoy the pound cake. I always thought that was pretty tasty.
Yeah. Anybody get any of those strike rations? Every once in a while, those I think it was an army thing,
Awful.
but man, those
Awful
strike
things.
rations, that was almost like real food in comparison to an MRE anyway. Like if you're comparing,
I don't know
strike rations,
what you got, but the strike rations I got were terrible. They were foul
Really?
bread mixed with fouler meat.
Oh
The
no,
only thing edible in it was a package of tuna.
I know.
Were those like white plastic plates or whatever with the saran wrap around them? Is that what you're talking about on those ones? Oh,
No,
okay.
these were like 2-day meals for us. Like the strike rations we got were 2-day. This was 09 time frame though, where I got them. And you know what? You can actually make that veggie omelet edible. You got to heat it. You got to mix it with Tabasco. You got to mix it with the jalapeno cheese, and you got to dump a full packet of salt and pepper in there. But if it's not hot, then you're probably going to vomit. Just so you know. All right, we've talked to one vet. Let's talk to an active duty. Chris.
All right. Well, hey, so my story really kind of starts back in high school. It's really when I decided I want to join the Marine Corps. Before that particular point in time, I was, pretty interested in potentially going to the Navy. I was looking to become maybe a fighter pilot. I watched Top Gun. I'd also, as a kid growing up, I was really enamored with space. I really liked Neil Armstrong. And so my thought was I was going to follow in Neil Armstrong's footsteps. I was going to be a fighter pilot. I was going to be an astronaut. Well, none of those things actually happened. But in high school, I got into Marine Corps JROTC, Junior Reserve Officer Training Corps. And we had 2 retired first sergeants who were running the program. One was First Sergeant Wayne Violet. The other one was First Sergeant Henry Weber. And there's something about their stories and the way they presented themselves in uniform. I got to meet the recruiters that they'd bring by. And then we go through actually different drills. Like we'd go out training for a week and meet real Marines, if you will, active duty Marines. And I just really appreciated there was something different about the Marine Corps. There was something very professional. There was this idea of like being at the tip of the spear. And something about that as a young kid really resonated with me. And so that really shifted me in terms of what I wanted to do in terms of joining the Marine Corps. Now, I'll be honest, something, Drew has heard me tell the story. This didn't necessarily go well with my family. I had very good grades in school, and my family, I would say more on my dad's side especially, they felt like, hey, you could go do something else with your life. Why would you join the military? And I think that was because from their perspective in history, most people in our family who had been in the military, either during the World War II time frame, they had quickly enlisted and gotten out, generally enlisted, or they had, we had a few, or one of my uncles served Vietnam, he was drafted. My dad had missed the draft, and the Vietnam War was not popular in that time as well as known throughout history. It certainly wasn't popular, and it was an interesting dichotomy between my grandfather, who was a World War II Navy vet. He was a police officer, and he did not necessarily want my dad going to Vietnam, and they had that kind of conversation. Well, my dad, having seen a lot of his friends die when he was in high school who went to Vietnam, he just had a kind of a bad distaste, I think, for the government at that time and political decisions. And so the idea of his son going off to combat based on what decisions political leaders make was not good. So we really didn't talk about it for a while, but I was still in high school when 9/11 happened. And at that point in time, I think things shifted drastically in terms of, I think, the nation and how they looked at the military. And there was a new patriotic fervor that took place. My own father, I remember I came home once from school, and this is probably the first time we really had a more of a real conversation about me joining the military. He said, son, I think if things were different, I think I would join the military now. And I think the military can use smart people like you. And so he became much more supportive of my desire to join the military. Now, during the time in high school, I was surrounded a lot of friends who ended up enlisting in the Marine Corps. They went downrange to Iraq. I don't know if any of them actually went to Afghanistan. A lot of them served in the infantry and other different fields. Most are out at this point. I do have a friend, she just pinned on gunny. But I knew I actually wanted to become an officer going into the Marine Corps. It was something that the first sergeants, put it to me as an option. I didn't really know what that was all about. And so I was fortunate to go to the Naval Academy and from there get a commission as a Marine Corps officer. And honestly, so I've been in the Marine Corps now about 13 years. I really enjoy being a Marine. There's been a lot of ups and downs. I've deployed 3 times. I'm overseas right now for a 1-year unaccompanied tour. And the best thing I enjoy about the Marine Corps is the people I get to serve with. People like Chase, Chad, Seth, Drew. It's like I just get to serve with incredible professionals, people who are very smart, passionate, patriotic, and I get to make a difference in the lives, especially a lot of young people in America. We average active duty is between 18 to 26 years old. And so you got a lot of young men and women that you could really touch their lives, and you're literally living, not just working with them, but you typically live and work with them together. And so the ability to impact them far reaches out. And then you get to serve a cause greater than yourself. You're serving your country, whether you're in peacetime or war, you're on that front line. And I enjoy that. And I've done it, my whole adult life at this point. I'll do it for a considerable more amount of time. And so honestly, I'm proud of what I do. So yeah.
That, ladies and gentlemen, is why Chris is an officer. By God, that was a patriotic and moving speech.
I saw eagles flying across my screen as Chris was talking.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed. Perhaps I'll overdub the national anthem or God Bless America as he's speaking. So, second round robin question here. How did your parents feel? Like, we've already gotten Chris's answer. How did your parents feel about you joining the military? Seth, we'll start with you.
I think it was more disbelief on their part. And then they pretty much said the infamous last words at that point of, it's probably not a good idea and I don't think you should do it. To which my response has almost always inevitably been, okay, challenge accepted.
Chase.
Once my mom picked her jaw up off the floor when I said I needed a day off from school to go to MEPS, it was all supportive, although probably nervously so for my mom. But yeah, I never had him tell me I should do something else or try to go to college. So.
Chad?
Don't know.
That's reality, man.
I literally graduated early from high school, called my recruiter the day I graduated when they informed me that I was getting my high school diploma, and he told me he would pick me up from the school. And I went to MEPS and flew out the next day. And then when you had to make the phone call, I forgot my mom's phone number and acted like I made a phone call. So I have no idea.
I mean, that's reality here. We've got so many people trying to join the military to find stability, to find a new family, to gain a new start. And, these guys become family. The faces that you see here, like, I consider these men family to me. And it's a foreign concept to a lot of people. You accept strangers into your life from all over the place. My mother was deathly against the Marine Corps. I secretly invited a recruiter over to the house at one point, and he explained everything to me. But that was still like 2 years, I think, before I did the delayed entry program. But what was forbidden became much more acceptable once my older brother joined the Marine Corps. And my mother saw that it was survivable. And so he graduated from Paris Island, and then it was like, okay, well, if he survived, I guess my other son could probably survive. And there wasn't as much resistance on her part at that point. So my father, I don't believe, had any trouble with it. He was an Air Force vet, and it was just a natural progression in life. But mothers always think that things are going to kill you for some reason. Don't do that, it'll kill you. That was joining the Marine Corps or thinking about taking another job outside of the Marine Corps. Or when I changed jobs to EOD, she thought it was going to kill me. Or when I started riding a motorcycle, she thought it would kill me. I'm still here. I love you, Mom, but God's in control. So when he's done with me, then we'll be done. So who have we not heard from yet?
Me and Seth.
I
Yep.
do Chase first while he's still got a good internet connection.
There you go. That's probably a
True.
good idea.
Go ahead, Chase. Tell us all about it.
All right. So I, as a kid, I guess I always leaned towards the talent, and the Marine Corps was really the only option once I started leaning heavily towards military. But I think what ultimately sealed the deal was engineering, and I'm making it today. But at the point, made kind of a half-hearted joke about, well, if you want to go to that kind of school, you either need to get a job or go talk to Uncle Sam, because we don't have that kind of money. And like a typical 15-year-old boy, I had no interest in getting a job, so kind of narrowed my options. And I remember sitting in chem, and the teacher had two brothers. That's all right, Seth. I don't mind.
There's always one.
The teacher I had, she can we make him pay beer for interrupting the meeting? She had two brothers that worked in New York. They had an office in the towers, and they had an office across the river. And we got a call about a minute and a half after the plane hit the first building, and she got a call in the classroom, and it was her mother. And have you heard from whatever her brothers' names were? And we turned the TV on, and that was it. From there. I mean, I watched live as the plane hit tower number 2, and that was. I mean, I'm rage. I'm all kinds of emotions, but that solidified my decision to join the military. And then the Marine Corps being challenging. At that point, looking like the most challenging prospect, then that was it. And I wasn't on the path for anything since or after that. So joined to try to get a skill. I wanted to fix vehicles and do 4 years and move on, and be dirty, be greasy every day, work my butt off, and do that. And it didn't take too long. Apparently, I was smart enough and motivated enough to work myself out of a job and then do a desk. And I looked at my staff and COs and officers and the folks around me. I don't join the Marine Corps to do this. I joined to turn wrenches and get dirty. And luckily, EOD kind of fell into my lap, and I met a master guns who at that point had 27 years in the Marine Corps, and he and a sergeant and a staff sergeant who are now a master of gunnery sergeant and a major respectively. The three of them dug a 500-pound bomb out of a deep hole in the Okinawan soil into family housing. And I said, if that man can still get out and get dirty like that every now and then, I think that's probably the job for me. And get put a Latin package in, got accepted. At that point, the IED fight wasn't what it was, and it was in its infancy. And by the time I got out of the EOD school, it was full ramped into Iraq and then Afghanistan. And so I rolled into a fight I wasn't even prepared to fight, but was taught and trained well enough to do that. hopefully I passed enough of that knowledge on to, the guys that were eventually behind me to keep them alive. But yeah, it's been an interesting thing. My most recent deployment was an advisor tour in Afghanistan in 2018. The colonel, the team leader for the advisor team, wanted everybody to write an article about, or I should say, a paper about why we fight. So it was kind of the same thing, like why are we on this advisor team? Because it was kind of a volunteer thing. And so we had to lay out why we wanted to be there, and it really made me reflect on why I would be willing to go back and do this for Afghanistan. And ultimately it was to try to spread the freedom that we have here to other countries, and that's what it's kind of been about, just trying to develop, better men and women, and then spread the good things about America to, the less popular or less, the less privileged corners of the world, and help those people make themselves better and pull themselves up by the bootstraps, which you can do, I promise. So, I don't know. I mean, I probably have funny stories, but I've been racking my brain since we started this thing, and I can't think of any. So we'll just go ahead and end it there.
I just hear the weight of leadership in your voice, sir. It's heavy, wondering if the legacy that you've left. And I tell you, Chase, having worked directly with you, sir, you made a positive impact with the people that you serve with, and those around you are better for it. So I know that you have funny stories. You were surrounded by some ridiculous characters at second.
Yeah, well, some of those stories we don't need to bring back up.
No, definitely not.
My wife had to pick her jaw up off the floor at my going away from that unit. We learned that day. So
thankfully, most of company had rotated out by the time I was leaving, so nobody really knew me.
But easy with that sort of stuff. I'm just a slimy enlisted guy wrapped up in a warrant officer's body.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Seth Hopper, River City, who can't keep his comms quiet.
What was I talking about? Information overload, too much dependence on comms. So nothing really spectacular with my story. I failed out of a semester of college that I shouldn't have gone to in the first place, to be totally honest with you. I wasn't ready. I was working one full-time job, 2 part-time jobs, just minimum wage, making ends meet, paying for gas and an apartment. Realized pretty quickly that wasn't going to work, not for the long term. And if I wanted to dig myself out of a hole, I needed to get out of there. So I walked in the recruiter's office, told him I'm here to enlist. And again, to this day, I've never seen a staff sergeant gunny jumping over desks like that. Ever since. Trying to get to the filing cabinet, get my paperwork out first. So I enlisted, went to Parris Island, left from there, and got to Geiger for MCT in, I think it was the first time in 8 years it snowed in North Carolina, and we were out in the field. So that was fun. The company that came out of the field right before us, I think they had 86 cases of hypothermia. Yeah, that was an interesting time. So I enlisted. I really didn't know what I wanted to do initially. So I just told my recruiter, put me in infantry. He's like, no, I'm not doing it. Okay, fine. So I was looking, of course, you don't really know what you're doing when you're signing up. So I looked at 2800, and somewhere there it had something to do with ordnance. I was like, well, that sounds like fun. Go play with stuff that blows up. Sure, sign me up. Next thing I know, I'm fixing radios. But it worked out. Went from there, did a year in Okinawa, came back to Pendleton. Deployed with 13th MU in 03. Came back, went to 11th Marines. Deployed with RCT 5 in 06 for a year. Those year-long deployments are brutal, especially with family. Came back, went to INI. That's where my injury happened, was playing basketball on INI. I rolled my ankle inboard, tore both ligaments in my foot. 3 surgeries later, they didn't heal. So January 2014, shortly after I'd gotten to 3rd Battalion, 2nd Marines, Infantry Battalion as the comms maintenance chief. I got medically separated, and here I am. Nothing real special about it. Funny story. Trying to think now. So, okay. So when I was in Iraq with RCT 5, I was attached to 3-2 Weapons Company, their 81 millimeter mortar section out at OP Falcons off of Elmshorn, Michigan by the Husayba region. And we were out doing a security patrol one day. I was standing there, and I can't remember the guy's name, but they'd called our staff sergeant over the radio. I was a sergeant at the time. And they called our staff sergeant over the radio and was like, hey, they got a couple guys laying IEDs out of a bongo truck. Go ahead, go for them, and we're going to figure out what we're going to do. So we took over a compound. A couple guys were up on the roof. Everyone's kind of spread around, and me and this other Marine are standing there in the courtyard just talking. Well, apparently what they decided to do was they fired a tank round off of one of the tank platoons that they had stationed at Falcons into the bongo truck as they're dumping IEDs off. So if this is Falcons and this is a bongo truck, we're right here. It's directly overhead. They told staff sergeant they were firing. He kind of forgot to mention it to anybody else. So Southern Marine and I, mid-conversation, it sounded like a freight train just ran over our heads. And both of us, we dove headfirst, like laying on our faces. Somehow we both made it into the door at the same time. I don't know how both of us fit through that door. Everyone else was laughing because apparently they were all close enough to staff sergeant. They heard it come over the radio. And of course, he and I kind of stand up and are like, hey, yeah, we knew it was happening. I'm like, yeah, it was getting a little hot out there. We came in for the shade, dusting ourselves off as we stood back up. But yeah, good times. Not gonna lie, I miss them.
What's in that box there? Besides
These
you,
are
Seth?
crayons, and like every good jarhead. And actually, it's about that time, 0 dark 30. Like every good jarhead, you always got to have a snack on hand.
So last round robin question, maybe a little bit serious, maybe not. Depends on how you play it. Speaking of the civilian populace, what is it that you'd like to, a myth you'd like to dispel, or something that you'd like to say to a civilian out there to help them understand something, or to right a wrong, or to change an opinion that someone had cast on you when you interacted? Chad, let's start with you. You seem fired up tonight, buddy.
You know, I think this was more so. I know what your question was, but I really think it's more so for the veteran community themselves, and hopefully that there'll be some veterans that might listen to this. Because so oftentimes the veteran community seems to either come home from their time in service, or when they're a veteran at home, they feel disillusioned. They feel like they feel, at least in their own minds, they feel as if the civilian population doesn't care about them. And something I just want to remind them of is that, you know, a bridge has two sides, you know, and if it's not built on both sides, you can't cross it. And oftentimes, many people coming home from the military tend to want to isolate and disconnect themselves. And then they oftentimes wonder why no one cares. Well, it's not that no one cares. It's that they haven't made the effort to try to build that bridge so that people can recognize the issues that they're struggling with. So really, it's just a reminder to not build yourself an isolated box and trap yourself there. But if you have to have a box, create a door so that you can go out of it or someone can come in. That's really what I got to say.
I want to put a window in so people can see you in there too.
Yeah.
Like nobody's going to know you're isolated and all alone and need help if no one knows you're there. Isolation is the enemy of restoration. Like you're not doing yourself any favors by hiding away. You think that that's how you're dealing with things, but really you're just putting them off. You're not dealing with them. You're not getting past anything. You're still just keeping things compartmentalized and hoping you don't explode by holding it all in. Don't do it. But let's move to Chris.
Yeah, I mean, I think what Chad says is really deep. As I thought about this, over time, I think part of it, I think I would echo what Chad says. It's important for veterans, people in the military, to recognize they got to look to build those relationships, help those who've never had those experiences they've had, try to understand it to some degree. I remember after being away for my first year, when I went to training and kind of coming back to experience, with my family, talk really, especially my extended relatives, I felt a disconnect. And it was because I had experienced so much that now I really couldn't relate to them with. And that kind of disillusioned me a bit. But over time, I became to realize that I needed to make an effort to serve them. So start with like my extended relatives and family, help them understand in simple terms what I do. And, one thing I'm grateful for now is I told, the story about when I first left for the military, kind of the mentality of what military life was like for my family starting off with, and maybe other people who I guess you want to say civilians, was based on what either they saw from movies or experience they've heard years ago, right? And one of the things that really changed in their minds after knowing me over years was the professionalism, the people they got to meet meeting me and knowing and watching me progress from the time I was a young man, really since the time I was 18 to now I'm mid-30s, and watching that. I also had a lot of opportunity to interact with the civilian community, especially through church. And so getting to, express who I am. And I've always seen that people are very grateful for my service, and I made an effort to serve them, even through minuscule things. I remember when I was in Ohio, I was stationed out there and got to be part of a small church out there. And, I did things like just, stacking chairs or taking chairs away for a church service. Got to know a lot of the young men and women there who were in college, building relations with them, having coffee. And really just, I think it's important for veterans, people in the military to serve your community. Just start by building relationships, whatever that passion looks like. And later on in times in San Diego, I got, as well as in Ohio, I was involved in the CrossFit community and fitness. And that was awesome. I found that community was very similar to the military community, especially from a passion of fitness and just a drive for excellence in life. And we had a really good synergy there. Really enjoyed that. And so I think that's a really important part of like, how do you share your story and build camaraderie? it's also important for veterans to do this. I was recently just talking to a friend of mine, John Rudd. So he's a master sergeant in the Marine Corps in the EOD field. And he was telling me how he hit rock bottom in 2015 when a lot of his friends, pretty much almost all that he had in life at that time, died. They were in the bottom of the ocean in Florida after a helicopter accident. And one of the things he realized later was he had not built friendships outside of his military community, the people he served with and deployed with. And that did not help him to sustain resiliency. And so, and this also goes for as veterans transition. If you don't start that transition beforehand, if you just get so sucked up into the military and veteran culture, it's gonna be very hard to make that transition. And so that is important, I think, to breaking down that divide. I think it starts with us because that's what we can control. On the civilian side, I think it's important to realize that military people and veterans are human beings just like you. They have families, they have emotions, they go through very traumatic experiences, they go through difficult experiences. And yet they are not just, especially you hear like the idea of just being broken, veterans come back from war, they have PTSD, they have this. That does not mean that they are incapable of doing things. They have incredible leadership potential. They could just do incredible things for your business, for politics. And we see a lot right now, veterans who are serving in high political leadership in Congress. They're doing incredible things. You see different veterans who are serving in some high-end businesses and then there's veterans doing some great things out in the community. And if you could tap into that potential and you build that relationship with them, I think you're going to find that overall it'll be a very valuable experience, particularly in churches. I want to speak to that as well. I believe a lot of churches are very supportive in general of veterans and the military community, but often they don't know necessarily how to build that connection with them. But if they would understand first for the active duty military community and to some degree the reserves, yes, I know that these people come in and go all the time, but understand that they could be value added to you because they're going to take the message that you have and spread it, literally globally and nationally. That's a huge influence for you. And then from the veteran standpoint, they could really help to bring a new leadership paradigm to your church. That would be incredible. So it just comes down, I think, on both ends, looking to understand each other and to honestly put ego aside, put pride aside, put myths aside, and work together to make in terms of our country of America a greater country and a greater world.
Excellent. Seth, what you got?
Well, kind of tag along with the common theme, as well as do a little shameless self-promotion of River City. I think one of my biggest things is civilians don't necessarily understand what PTS actually is, because they get the media understanding of the traumatic event, the flashbacks, the veteran that can't function, kind of like what Chris was saying. It's not that we can't function. And my experience was different. I don't have the individual traumatic events. I don't have the specific incidents. And that PTS is not just a mental issue. It's a complete. It affects everything. Partly because it's the physiological aspects of what your body is going through on a regular basis, on a continuous basis. I mean, you get to the point where your adrenaline is up constantly to the point where you don't even recognize it as adrenaline anymore. And then because of that, you're just dumping cortisol in your body. And now it's just building up and building up and building up. And then you don't really have any way to get rid of it. The mental aspect is there also. And then the spiritual aspect of it is there, mind, body, and soul. It's all tied together into one holistic issue that has to be dealt with holistically. You can't just deal with the mental aspect. You can't just deal with the physiological or the spiritual aspect. You have to address it completely. And again, to kind of tie on into what Chris and Chad were saying, the vast majority of veterans that have PTS, most people are never going to know, because we're not the outliers that are screaming or having flashbacks or can't function. We're just put our head down, try to get by unnoticed, go to work, do our thing, and we just want to be left alone. I'm not necessarily saying that's a good thing. I'm not necessarily saying that's a bad thing. It's just, we want to be left alone. Part of that is kind of what Chad was saying. We don't want to necessarily build that bridge. But it's hard for us to build that bridge because there's such a disconnect from both sides that, we're speaking two different languages. And we've got to figure out how to come together and understand each other's languages in order for us to finish that bridge and cross over and actually be able to engage with each other in a meaningful way, not just the, oh, you're in the Marines, or what'd you do in the Army, or whatever.
We'll do a whole separate event on River City at another point, and all that you're doing to help vets to network together.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. But I mean,
We
like I said,
appreciate you.
I just
We
wanted
love you.
to,
Hey, we'll link River City down below in the article. This is going to be in the middle of a blog post. God bless Chris. Chris is running, Freedom Fitness America? Did I say that correctly?
Yep. So that
We'll have a link for them as well, and all that they're out there doing, try to be fit for the fight and life, ladies and gentlemen, trying to get people to be, spiritually and physically fit for battle, to prevent the moral injury and some of the PTS issues before they happen. Preventative medicine, man. Wow. Tell you what. And you got people like Chase who just want to do preventative maintenance. Chase, you're up next, brother. What do you want to say to the civilian world?
Well, I don't know how to follow this. At least not my initial plan. Chad, Seth, and Chris all hit points that I wanted to make and did it eloquently. So I don't want to beat a dead horse. So I think I'll just make it short and speaking in an analogy. The civilians out there that want to interact with military members and veterans, like Chris said, we're not broken. And Seth made mention of we're speaking different languages, and I would point the analogy to be that we're Americans, but you might want to look at it like we're a foreigner, and you don't have an interpreter. If you've ever had that challenge to speak to someone who doesn't speak your language, there's a level of communication there that is emotional, that's physical. It's not tangible, but it's there. You can communicate some things with someone from another country who has no idea what you're saying and no idea what they're saying. But you still don't approach a person like that, like they're broken or different or weird or anything else. You have to find a commonality through two different sets of languages, and then you can build from that. Now, luckily, we all speak, the same, at least English language. So you've got a leg up there. But as far as just building, the half of the bridge on your end, and not being afraid to approach a military member or veteran, have a meaningful conversation and build an initial relationship, right? And figure out what what you're trying to say to them and what it means when they're receiving it is a fragile thing. But I don't say fragile as in the relationship parts of it's fragile, not that you're fragile or the military member, the veteran is fragile, but getting that initial foot in the door and establishing a relationship is a fragile thing, and it definitely needs to be done delicately, but again in a way that you're just recognizing that you're speaking two different languages, you come from two different backgrounds, you have two wholly different sets of life experiences. But once you realize that, it doesn't take that long to have, a meaningful conversation or relationship with a veteran. A personal story to illustrate. I volunteered for several years with a Boy Scout troop with my son in Florida, and most of the time I had to go out of my way to introduce myself to new parents, because it was the Scoutmaster loved to talk about Mr. Chase and the fact that he was an Eagle Scout and a Marine, and so all the parents were aware, and it instantly put them on guard, and so I had to do my part in building that bridge, because there was an apprehension there. So for those that are able to be made aware, if your interactions with veterans, try to follow the guidance a little bit on building the bridge and starting that relationship, that conversation.
Awesome. Thank you. Definitely in future posts in the Divide series, we've got some questions that I've put out to a lot of different veteran groups and gotten significant response to. We'll be consolidating a lot of the responses into an answer package and publishing it. Please, if you have any other questions that you want to ask veterans, I post to a lot of different groups, and it won't be just my opinion. I promise you, there's a lot of opinions out there that we're gathering. So if you got a question for a vet, send it to me at drew@mentalgrenade.com, or leave it in the comment section down below. Scroll to the very bottom and leave it as a comment. Definitely take the time to say something more to a vet this Veterans Day than thank you for your service. Take the time to ask them if they'd like to talk to you about their service. If they don't want to, that's cool. Let them walk on. But chances are they might want to express something. There might be a very interesting story there. There might be a relationship that's built. I remember talking to a ranger in an event that I was at last year, and he was like, I kept passing this old dude on the street, and eventually I just stopped because he kept giving me this weird look, and I introduced myself, and we got to talking, and we're great friends now. Like, this guy who's just been all over the world and done all this stuff, and he's still like, in his mid 30s, is now best friends with this old civilian man who still has a lot of life experience, and they're able to have this great exchange just because he was willing to take a chance and reach out and make a connection. Like, we all have differences out there. Like, this is a ridiculous time in history, and we're focusing on the differences when we need to see what brings us together. And just want to say happy birthday to the United States Marine Corps. It's November 10th. At least it will be when this is published. That's only a few days away from this recording date. And the day after, November 11th, that's Veterans Day. But the Marines beat you there. First to fight, one day before. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us. And appreciate it. We'll have future interviews with Chris about Freedom Fitness America and Seth with River City. You'll see plenty more from Chad, flexing and posing, and hopefully an article here in the near future on Mental Grenade. Chase, love you, brother. Keep fighting the good fight.
Yeah. Love you too, man. Hey, I want to throw out a quick note too. Is it's not we're all relatively young guys, but don't forget about the old vets.
Hmm.
You know, the Korean War, Vietnam, few World War II vets still hanging on out there. Don't forget about those men and women either. They served their country and fought like hell for it.
And at this time of year it's more difficult for the older generations as their friends are less and less. That's a really good point. Thanks for bringing that up, Chase. I'm taking a Vietnam vet out for breakfast on the 11th, and thoroughly look forward to hanging out with Lefty. He was a middleweight boxing champion for the Marine Corps boxing team back in the Vietnam era. Also, a couple combat tours there. He's a Philly cop, an amazing human being. To spend an hour with this man, you will laugh and laugh and laugh. The stories are never ending from Lefty. But thanks for joining us. God bless.